And get started. People will join as they join. Also, feel free if you need to drop off, feel free to go. I appreciate your time, whatever you can give for me. But this is something I've been working on for several months, and I need to put it up in front of people so that I can get a sense of what works and what doesn't. So, without any further ado, uh, this is I Play Barbies with Julie, written and performed by Sean Geary.
Yeah.
Have you ever done something you thought would be pretty innocent and good for a laugh? You know, like sending your spit off to be analyzed and told you're a super taster and that's why Brussels sprouts are scientifically trash? Or that you have the gene that processes caffeine at a faster rate and that's why you can drink coffee after 10 p.m. and still fall asleep? Or that you have a half sister you didn't know about and your dad wasn't your biological father? Now, this is a story all about how my life got turned upside down, and I'd like to take a minute if just sit right there. I'll tell you how I became the son with two fathers. I love television theme songs. Thank you for joining me on this journey through my life. So let's start at the beginning. We were a lace curtain Irish family. For the uninitiated, it cuts a couple of ways. It has the air of new money because lace curtains would have been expensive, but it also meant that having a veneer, something to cover up the turmoil underneath. To paraphrase Alicia Silverstone, your family's a total Monet. From far away, it looks okay, but up close, it's a big old mess. Being called lace curtain wasn't a good thing. You were either being called out for thinking too highly of yourself or that they could see through your facade. And in our family, the lace curtains were a facade. We learned to be lace curtain from our mother, who learned it from hers. We called her Nanny, and she would not leave the house unless she was fully dressed and fully coiffed with a wafting trail of aquanet behind her. She wore Shalimar perfume, and you could often taste her presence before you saw her. She had silver hair before she turned 40 and had it until the chemo took it from her shortly before she died. She smoked Raleigh cigarettes and would sit in her kitchen talking on the phone, usually to one of her sisters or my mother, chain smoking with a beanbag ashtray on her leg. That uncompromising, enterprising, anything but tranquilizing, right on, Kay. How perfect would it have been if her name was Maud? But it was Catherine, and she went by Kay. I was 14 when she died, and I inherited her easy chair. And one day I just happened to press my face into the upholstery and got her scent for the first time in months. Until I graduated college and that chair was sold, I would sit there and spend time with Nanny, trying to smell her mixture of hairspray, perfume, and yes, cigarette smoke. It got harder each passing year, but up until the end, I knew the right spot to find her. She fit both the lace curtain definitions. Her appearance was very important to her, and she thought very highly of herself. But also because Bumpy, my grandfather, was not a good man. He was an alcoholic and abusive, and so she put up her lace curtains to conceal what was going on in the house. It was the 40s in a blue collar Boston suburb. She stayed because she couldn't leave, and she stayed quiet because there wasn't much anyone could do. Smile a brave smile and try to make the best of things. Lace curtains. I am the youngest of three children. My fun fact about myself before, for a long time, was that my older brother and sister were both adopted, but I was not. My parents got married in the mid 1960s and were not pregnant before their first anniversary. Inconceivable. So it was just widely assumed by many that they weren't going to have kids either by choice or biology. They adopted my sister Erin in 1968, my brother from South America in 1972, and in 1975, I came along. Yo, Geary, why is your brother black and you guys aren't? He's not black. He's from South America. Sounds black to me. This was a different blue collar Boston suburb in the 80s, so everyone was or is wicked racist. Well, he isn't. He's adopted and he's my brother. My sister's adopted too. Oh, yeah? Your dad shoot blanks? Where did you come from? My dad doesn't have a gun. I was a surprise. It would take many years for me to find out exactly how much of a surprise I was. Aaron was not a fan of our mom being pregnant. You told me you couldn't get pregnant. You lied to me. Send it back. My parents didn't lie
Oh.
about it. They had just been married for 10 years. My mother had two psychosomatic pregnancies. So, as far as they knew, My mom couldn't get pregnant, and my mom desperately wanted to have a baby. Actually, I should say she wanted to be pregnant and give birth. Erin pointed out to me at one point that she and our brother had arrived to them as babies. So she had babies, she just didn't give birth to one. But despite being annoyed by my pending arrival, once I was born, Erin would become my big sister. It was you, then came you. You made me leap without taking a look. It was you, then came you. You reeled me right in, line, sinker, and hook. I never thought forever was the best I could do, then came you. She carried me everywhere and understood my baby babble. My sister was responsible for us all at a young age while our parents were working. And in this time, she also became my protector. And we forged a bond that lasts until this day. My brother, well, he still lives in New England. My siblings and I are the truest definition of Gen X and latchkey kids. Mom was a teacher, but waited tables for extra money, and dad graduated college when I was about 5 and became a middle school woodshop teacher, but he also sold and installed carpeting for Sears. I thought everyone's parents were only home 1 or 2 nights a week. I didn't know any different. By the age of 9, I'd be on my own sometimes. It taught me to be independent. I learned to cook for myself, do my own laundry, and put myself to bed. I thought if I could take care of myself, I could be one less thing for my parents to worry about. My brother and I fought a lot. My siblings and my parents fought a lot. My parents fought with each other a lot. And I think my parents were just too tired to fight with me. And I was too scared to misbehave. So we didn't fight, but we also didn't interact much. They worked so much and were gone a lot of the times. Whenever they were home, I shrank to make myself less noticeable. I tried to make myself invisible. We lived in an old house in the neighborhood, like 1860s old, and I had a very small bedroom. So my parents got me a platform bed so that I could have some storage with drawers and shelves. I figured out I could hide underneath that bed. And so when the fighting got bad, or my brother would try and wield knives to chase us, or I just wanted to be alone, I could slip down underneath that platform and I'd head into my world of make believe. Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name. The television was my babysitter for a lot of things, and clearly I watched a lot of television. Mom, can we get cable? Of course not. Your brother and sister would want to watch smut. What's smut? What's on cable? No arguing with that ironclad logic, but I'm pretty sure I thought smut had something to do with chimneys. Aaron, come in here. This is so funny. What are you watching? The Dick Van Dyke Show? Dick in a dike, and mom's worried about us watching smut on cable? What? You'll get it when you're older. I learned a lot about lesbians from the Golden Girls, so I did get that joke much later. You like the black and white TV shows? They're funny. I Love Lucy is funny. Mary Tyler Moore is also funny, but it's weird because she's Laura on the Dick Van Dyke Show and she's Mary on the Mary Tyler Moore Show. One's in New York, one's in Minneapolis. She must have to do a lot of driving to be on both. I clearly didn't understand how syndication worked. Who can turn the world on with her smile? Who can take a nothing day and suddenly make it all seem worthwhile? We were one of the first families in our neighborhood to get a VCR, and eventually I'd have one in my room to myself. I watched and rewatched The Swiss Family Robinson and The Wizard of Oz because it was all that we owned. Families living in tree houses, tornadoes taking you to foreign lands. I wanted that. I wanted to be able to leave and go somewhere else. We'd get bootleg movies and record things off the movie channel, and I fell in love with Dirty Dancing, Clue, The Breakfast Club, and Beaches. I had all those movies memorized at one point, and I still quote them sometimes, out of context and for my own effect. I carried a watermelon. I carried a watermelon? When I wasn't watching TV, I would end up playing board games with my stuffed animals, listening to records on my Superman record player, or I'd go up into the attic and escape into playing scenes from He-Man, Battlestar Galactica, and Buck Rogers. Gil Gerard played Buck Rogers on the television show, and I had the hugest crush on him. He was daddy before daddy was cool, and boy, was he daddy. I knew I shouldn't tell anyone I had a crush on him, mostly because the other boys in my neighborhood were fascinated with Linda Carter as Wonder Woman, and she is a knockout. But Straight little boys in my neighborhood wanted Wonder Woman, and the gay little boys wanted to be Wonder Woman. I mean, come on, a shiny one piece, thigh high red boots, and don't get me started on that tiara. In your satin tights, fighting for your rights. Get us out from under Wonder Woman. Something I've been asked a lot about was what it must have been like for my siblings to be adopted, but I wasn't. A lot of people think they must have felt something different after I came along, and it's not an easy answer. Mom really went out of her way to make sure that they knew they were wanted and loved, almost to my exclusion. When I think about it, somehow I was the oddball for not being adopted. Why did they get a chosen day and I don't? Because I had you. You weren't adopted. This is for adopted kids. But don't I have a day you knew I was coming? I don't really know what day that was. There were a few days I felt a little sick and different. Then I went to the doctor and he told me I was pregnant with you. Were you happy? I was very happy to be pregnant, Sean. I had waited so long to have a baby. But you don't remember the day. You can't remember the day every day in your life, sweetheart. But you remember their chosen day? That's different. I wasn't chosen. It's not the same for biological babies and adopted babies. I have to make sure Aaron and your brother know that we love them, that we chose them, and that they're part of our family. Just help me finish the cake for your sister. And sometimes they would get special gifts that I didn't. Picture it. Christmas in New England, 1995. Aaron's family traveled back to New England for Christmas. My niece Samantha was about 8 months old. My nephew Vinny was 4. My brother lived close by, and the first of his fiancées, very long story, was with us too. It wasn't the last time we were all together, but it was the last Christmas. There was a warm Duraflame fire burning in our fireplace, electric Christmas lights lit in the windows, outside a blanket of snow because there was a blizzard the night my sister and her family arrived, and how could it be any more Norman fucking Rockwell perfect? Oh, no, 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 wait. That gift? No, no, both of you have to open that gift at the same time. I found that this year at a craft fair, and I had to get one for the both of you. It was a framed poem stenciled on cardstock entitled The Legacy of an Adopted Child. Once there were two women who never knew each other. One you do not remember, the other you call mother. Two different lives shaped to make yours one. One became your guiding star, the other became your sun. The first gave you life, and the second taught you to live in it. The first gave you a need for love, and the second was there to give it. One gave you a nationality, and the other gave you a name. One gave you emotions, one gave you the seed of talent, the other gave you a name. One gave you emotions, the other calmed your fears. One saw your first sweet smile, the other dried your tears. One gave you up, it was all that she could do. The other prayed for a child, and God led her straight to you. And now you ask me through your tears the age-old question through the years. Heredity or environment? Which are you the product of? Neither, my darling, neither. Just two different kinds of love. Hey, where's my special craft fair poem? I came out of you, but I don't get a poem.
Yeah, so I just used the side part.
I remember feeling slighted. The feeling of course you were wanted and loved because that's what moms and dads do, was often unspoken, implied. I was just supposed to know it, and there were times that I felt silly or petty for feeling slighted or less than. But my mom is about the appearance and performance of being a good mother. I think in large response to her own childhood. So it was odd to me that she would go out of her way for her two adopted kids, but not for her biological one. I just felt taken for granted. I did get a special craft fair gift the following year, but when I opened mine, it was just my mom and dad and me, no spectacle. To my wonderful son, God knows everything, and to prove it long ago, he one day knew I would need someone by my side to make me laugh and make my heart smile. And you have brought joy into my life ever since. I have always been delighted by your funny way of looking at life. You have helped me see things through your eyes, and together we have laughed at many of life's ups and downs. I love you, and I am so proud of the person you have become. You have such a caring heart. Hold on to it forever. It's what makes you so very special. I hope we will always be close, and I thank you for being by my side when I need you. Thank you, Lord, for sending me such a wonderful son who will always be my little boy. Bless his sweetheart and watch over him forevermore. It sits on top of a curio cabinet in my living room to this very day. There's a plate of homemade wishes on the kitchen windowsill. Dad was a woodworker. When I was doing research into his family, his relatives were all cabinet makers or furniture makers spread throughout County Cork and eventually New England. The Gearys were builders. Dad had his own workshop down in our cellar with his tools, table saws, wood stains, paintbrushes, and sawdust everywhere. He had a handmade drafting table where he'd sketch his projects out, and I can still smell the sawdust. I'd pile it up like snow and try to build sawdust men. Sawdust doesn't stick like snow, but it was fun to try. I couldn't build or make anything like he could, and I'd always compared myself to him whenever I tried. Dad would make it better. I made a mug tree in middle school, and it was a basic square and a long rectangle with some pegs alternating on each side. We didn't have time to stain it in class, so it was unimpressive, but as a burgeoning pack rat, I couldn't get rid of it either. So I hid it in my things where he eventually found it. Hey, Ishkabibble, his very weird pet name for me. What's this? It's a mug tree. But it's not finished, and I put this hole in the wrong spot, so it's not any good. Don't worry about that stuff. This is great. He stained it and stenciled it, and they used it in their kitchen for many years. He wasn't a bad dad. Here we are, face to face, a couple of silver spoons, hoping to find we're two of a kind. We weren't, and that's okay. I can still hear the sound of the table saw cutting pieces of wood. I can see the bookcases, small tables, clocks, and lamps that would emerge from down below. And the things he made were beautiful. He taught woodshop for the only public middle school in a very small town nearby. Every student had to take woodshop and home ec every year. I would be able to go into people's houses and make a guess as to when they had my dad based on what projects were on display. And if they didn't have anything, then they must have just gone to the Catholic school. Erin was daddy's little girl. She and dad had a bond that couldn't be broken.
Yeah.
I don't think I was ever really jealous of Erin's bond with dad, but I knew I didn't have it. Throughout my entire life, I would dread being alone with him. He didn't scare me so much as I just didn't know what to do around him.
Sure.
I felt like he was always one step away from me. Like I knew he loved me, but I didn't think he liked me. I always thought I kind of disappointed him. Dad, 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 stop crying. Boys don't cry. Who did this to you? Well, Danny jumped on my back and he punched me in my face out of nowhere. Danny did this to you? He's smaller than you. Yeah, I know. And there was like 5 other boys around us cheering him on. What did you do? I came home? No, what did you do to make Danny punch you?
The bad guys?
Nothing, Dad. Nobody likes me in school. That's not true. You have plenty of friends. Not that many and nobody cool. Nobody thinks I'm cool, Dad. I'm just fat and ugly and nobody wants to be my friend.
Yeah.
What do you want me to do? Just give him a hug, Neil. Give your little boy a hug and tell him it sucks. Tell him you're sorry that he's hurting. Tell him you love him. We're really moving at the end of the year. Maybe the kids at my new school will like me. The nights are long, but you might awaken to a brand new life, brand new life, brand new life around the bend. I was a little boy with big emotions and not always sure of himself or how to deal with those feelings. Dad was a member of the silent generation. Children are to be seen and not heard. Push those feelings all the way down until they explode many days or even years later. And I was not that. We shared spaces, but we didn't share life.
Yeah.
When I moved away for college, whenever I called home, I would hope that my mom would answer the phone first.
Away.
Mom, please pick up. Mom, please pick up. Mom, please pick up. Mom, please pick up. Oh, hi, Dad. How are things? Yeah. Wow, a new car. Oh, it has that kind of engine.
What?
Does it have a tape deck? No. Oh, power windows. Oh, yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Yeah, school's good. Yeah, it was a good game yesterday. So is mom around?
Your mom?
I was for sure a mama's boy. I could talk to my mom more easily, and I had the internal struggle of
Sure.
how long to talk to him before asking for her without seeming rude. I never landed on the right answer. Shortly after my dad died, a friend invited me out to coffee. He was checking in on me to make sure that I was okay. He told me that his dad was his best friend and he'd be lost without him. That was not our relationship. At one point, though, I realized when I was in middle and high school, he came to several chorus concerts, a half dozen school plays, a couple of Odyssey of the Mind competitions, nerd stuff. And so while I didn't have the bond he had with my sister, he showed up for me in my older years in ways that his father would never have shown up for him. He stepped up, and I think I was too self absorbed at the time to notice it. And as an adult and during therapy, I realized my parents showed up to the whole marriage and parenting things with a very barren toolbox. My dad's parents, Nana and Grampy Geary, were emotionally and verbally abusive. They were cold and distant. Grampy and dad didn't get along for whatever their reasons were. And Grampy would call me fat and my mother a dingbat. And when I died when he was 10, I didn't really miss him. Nana had Alzheimer's disease when I was born. So she was just a weird old lady that wandered around the living room mumbling to herself. My dad did tell me that because Nana couldn't control him when he was a little boy, she'd tie him up to the tree outside their house like a leash, and Grampy tied the rope. My mother didn't tell us about her childhood until a couple of years after my Bumpy died. I had no idea that he was so awful to her and Nanny. I had no idea the torment she experienced as a little girl. He was a very quiet man and didn't say much to anyone, so I couldn't imagine him getting angry and yelling, but I also couldn't imagine him laughing and having a good time either. Oh, it's like we've been together for a million years, and I'll bet we'll be together for a million more. When I was in first grade, I'd be introduced to one of my oldest friends, Kyle, Karl. But I would only ever call him Carl when I was being an asshole. He was 4 years older, and his house just down the street from mine was a gathering spot for where I'd meet a lot of kids from other parts of the neighborhood who went to different schools. We weren't the most popular or the richest or the nicest, but we were who we had. We played kickball in the street. We also played school in his cellar. And because his mom worked at the cafeteria at the middle school nearby, she'd bring home discarded desks and books for us to use. And whenever she could, she'd also bring home leftover triangles or rectangles of pizza. And that alone made the friendship worth it. My parents weren't thrilled I was friends with him because he was older, but he wasn't more mature. We began, sorry, we did eventually quit playing school. Seriously, we'd come home from school and then go to his house and go back to school again. We began watching a lot of television, and his family was one of the first in the neighborhood to have cable and HBO. I saw Splash a lot. I am not a fish. We'd also watch horror movies, and this is the cable that my mom should have been afraid of. It did way more damage to me as a youngster than it ever did as when I got older. We'd watch Commander USA's groovy movies, Saturday Nightmares, and whatever else might be on HBO. I hated horror movies as a kid. No, really, Sean, we're not watching Don't Go in the Woods Alone. We're watching Splash. You love that movie. I'm not a fish. And I would go down and watch Don't Go in the Woods Alone through my fingers. Ha ha ha. Oh, little baby, can't take a horror movie. Gotta close your eyes, you fag. It's too scary for the baby. In a genre filled with bad movies, this is a terrible movie. But I also knew that if I didn't go, then I'd just be alone again at my house. And now I love horror movies, partially because they showed me the original Halloween, and somehow that was less scary. Did you know that Jamie Lee Curtis has played the character Laurie Strode in a Halloween movie or sequel in each of the last 6 decades at least once, and you thought Michael Myers couldn't be killed. I often felt like I had to hide my true self from them. I felt like if they saw behind my lace curtains, they wouldn't like what they saw, and I would genuinely have no friends. I would occasionally risk telling them how much I liked science fiction or fantasy, and they were not fans. Hey, hey, in yesterday's episode of He-Man, Man at Arms said, "You like that show?" I don't like it, but I mean, oh, you're a faggot. You like it because He-Man runs around in his furry underwear. I mean, at that age, they weren't wrong. I'm not a faggot. You don't even know what you're talking about. Tila is so hot. What the fuck is Tila? I would learn to keep those lace curtains closed for them, pretend I wasn't scared of them seeing me even though I was petrified. And before I knew what it was, I was writing a lot of slash fic as a kid. It wasn't going to win any awards, but it allowed me to explore my sexuality and fantasies. Buck Rogers enters Hawk's nest and he begins to unzip his shirt, revealing that hairy chest. I just got done fighting a space vampire and I need to feel your feathers around me. Buck, what will Wilma say? I'm more worried about Twiggy. EB. As queer people, we have closets, and I just ended up decorating mine with the shield of my people, lace curtains. I could talk about the girls and women in the shows I liked, Alyssa Milano, Heather Locklear, and Jasmine Guy, but really, it was Tony Danza, Adrian Zemed, and Daryl Bell that I wanted to talk about. It's a different world than where you come from. The summer between seventh and eighth grade, we moved 15 minutes north, but it was a different state without the accent as much, no sales tax, and a brand new house. My new junior high would be grade 7 through 9, and I'd have a couple years to get my bearings before high school. Because no one at my new school knew who I was, I didn't know who I was either. So I found myself making up stories from my old school. I had this impression that popularity was super important, so I tried to make myself sound like the old big man on campus. A group of kids eventually saw through this, saw through all my bullshit. In ninth grade, my English teacher wanted to change my seat, and she pointed to two different options. One was next to some kids that I did not like, and they didn't like me. And one was next to these kids. And what I saw, and I can remember it clearly, was this group of kids waving me over and pointing to an empty desk. I finally got my chosen day, and my brand new life around the bend started.
Oh,
I was invited into their group, and they would be my friends through high school. I didn't share their history or their inside jokes and still felt like an add on to the group sometimes. Like, I thought they felt sorry for me, and then they invited me to join them. I didn't really trust people. When I started writing this, I thought of myself like Rob, John Cusack's character in High Fidelity. These are my top 5 friendship breakups, and how awful was this event to me? I think we can all agree, for those of us that have seen the movie, that Rob was clearly an asshole and always responsible for his breakups. And as I've reflected, at some point in my life, I crafted this narrative for myself where I was somehow this victim's not the right word, but it's close. And I created this victim narrative because I didn't want to be at fault for my friendships ending or not being what I wanted them to be. I had such a fucked up notion that popularity and having the right friends were the important things. More friends means people liked you. People liking you meant you would be happier and life would be great. And because my life wasn't always so great, I thought I had the wrong friends. I wanted to be someone's Lucy to their Ethel. Hell, even their Mary to my Rhoda. I had that for a while in high school, but reflecting back on it, I was always looking for something more or better. I was always looking for the movie and TV friends. Not having a writer's room really cramped my style. So no one told you life was gonna be this way. That's it. None of that. Something I've come to realize over the years, though, is that when my friend Danny punched me in the spring of seventh grade, he wounded my pride, but he broke my heart. I wouldn't have said this at 12, but I loved Danny. and not in a romantic way. But I loved him as a friend who I thought would be my friend for life. And sorry, I lost my spot. Um, he was into science fiction. He talked to me about He-Man and Star Trek. He didn't make fun of me for my weight or lack of athletic ability, and we talked about things that I couldn't tell anybody else. I trusted him, and he betrayed me. If Danny, who I loved with my whole heart, could do this, then anyone could do this. All friends were suspect, and I was always waiting for the other shoe to drop. Unlike Rob in High Fidelity, though, I realized that I'm responsible for how many of my friendships ended. My friends from different eras weren't trying to hurt me. I had just been so deeply hurt by one, and I immediately began protecting my heart from such a betrayal again. If I just assume they'll hurt me, it won't hurt so bad when they finally do. It would take me many years to stop waiting to be hurt. Everybody's got a special kind of story. Everybody finds a way to shine. Don't matter what you got, not a lot. So what? They'll have theirs and you'll have yours and I'll have mine. And together we'll be fine. But they got different strokes it takes, different strokes it takes, different strokes to rule the world. At my new junior high, there'd be a school play, and I know it's cliche, but I was a theater kid. It was like Dorothy walking into Oz. My world went from black and white to color. You mean after years of pretending to be so many things to please people who didn't notice, playing make believe by myself, I could finally do this? I could pretend to be another person for a couple of hours. I was in heaven. The play was perfect for middle schoolers, a cheesy murder mystery called Death by Chocolate. And I wasn't in the cast, but I was the understudy and I helped with tech. I learned about dressing all in black so you couldn't see me, and I got to wear a headset and feel important. Once I started high school drama club, though, I was always the comic relief. I was Dr. Zubritsky in Neil Simon's Fools, Ernie in Neil Simon's Rumors, and many characters in Neil Simon's The Good Doctor. My drama teacher loved Neil Simon. He also told me, you're just not leading man material. Code for fat and obviously gay. And I knew I was gay at a very young age, but I also was never going to come out. I was going to find the woman of my dreams, and she'd make me forget all about Gil Gerard, that neighbor who ran with his shirt off in the summers, that boy in third period geometry class whose lip curled just so when he smiled. Why are you looking at that boy? Do you like him? Oh, uh, no, I just really like the shirt that he was wearing. I don't like him. You thought he was cute. I did not. I didn't know. I'm not gay. You're always saying that I'm gay. It's okay if you are. Well, I'm not. I wasn't fooling anybody. And I'll even admit something very embarrassing. I was someone's secret admirer. I had convinced myself that I needed to write love poetry and notes to this young woman and send it to her house anonymously. This was a frequent plot point in a lot of the movies and TV shows that I watched. The Brady Bunch, 16 Candles, the movie Secret Admirer, Roxanne, Say Anything. And I thought this is how you woo someone. Why? Because I was so fat and ugly and unworthy of any kind of love that the only way I could earn it was through deception. Then she'll feel bad for me and date me. Isn't that how it works? I now realize how unhinged this seems. I did eventually reveal myself, and it didn't end up being a romantic love story. She was a senior, I was a sophomore. She was off to college, and I'm gay. Heterosexuality was just a red herring. She is still a very dear friend to this day. Eventually, I would have a girlfriend in high school, and it confirmed everything I already knew. I've searched for her over the years, and she has no social media footprint. She's never had an obituary published. I don't know whatever happened to her, but I do know I could have an adult child out there, which is partially why I did the 23andMe and Ancestry.com tests. So I sent my spit through the US mail to tell me if I'm an absent father. Do I have a child? Not as far as I know, but I also had no idea it would open up a set of lace curtains that had been sewn shut for all those years. I have an older half sister who I didn't meet until I was 48. And so, how did this happen? Well, sometimes when a man and a woman live next door to each other and are both unhappy in their marriages, they have an affair. When one of those people has been married for 10 years without a natural birth in her life, and she meets a charming, smooth talking, handsome man who looks enough like her husband and isn't shooting blanks, I finally learned what that meant. She can rationalize getting pregnant. She can make up a timeline that works. An opportunity presents itself, I guess. You take the good, you take the bad, you take them both, and there you have the facts of life. The facts of life. I don't know, Aaron. 23andMe says that I have a half sister, and her name is Julie Adams. Wait, Julie Adams. Wait, Julie Adams. She can't be your sister. I don't know who that is, but it says she's my sister. It sounds like you know who she is. I played Barbies with Julie. She was my best friend. She lived next door. How are you her sister? How is she your sister? Sorry. And without going into the weeds, Aaron and I concocted a story where Julie was our dad's daughter and she was the secret. I immediately messaged Julie through the app. I didn't know what she knew, so I kept it vague. I never thought I'd be writing a letter like this, and yes, I know it's the start to a penthouse letter. My parents grew up in Leominster. They moved to Manchester and then Lowell, and we eventually moved to Nashville, where I went to high school. My brother and sister are both adopted. Happy to answer any questions you might have, but if you don't want any contact, I get it. It's a lot of information to find out. I always knew I'd hear from you someday. Your sister's Erin. We were best friends, and we were really sad when you were moving away. Your parents are Jane and Neil, and they were always very kind to me. Your family moved next door from Manchester. Your mom was a teacher. Your dad was a woodworker, and he was trying to fix up the house. You had a tenant in the old servants' quarters for a long time. I could look from my bedroom into yours, and I can remember hearing you cry, and your mom or Erin would come and get you. She could look into my bedroom. Next door neighbor. Who the fuck is this person? She knows everything about us, but I couldn't pick her out of a lineup. If you want to chat, I'd love to talk to you, but also I know it can be a lot, so I get it if you don't. Fuck yes, I want to talk to my sister. So we set up a phone date for a couple days later, and I sat in my car and I had the first phone call with my long lost half sister, ready to tell her all about our dad, Neil. First of all, I need to let you know that since I found this out about us, you've been a topic of conversation in my family. Wow, that's not at all weird to hear. Yeah, but not bad stuff. Like, when's he going to do 23andMe? And has anyone gotten a hit on their 23andMe? And as she started to tell me this story, I began to realize that what I thought was wrong. My world was changing around me. So I had to text Aaron while talking to Julie. Aaron, we got it all wrong. It wasn't dad, it was mom. What? How did mom have a baby and not remember it? Admittedly, it wasn't clear what I meant. No, what? No. Julie's not my sister through our dad. I'm her brother through her father. Mom cheated, not dad. Julie told me she found out about me in 2016 after a lunch she had with her mother and Betsy Murphy, an old acquaintance of both of our moms. During this lunch, Julie was reminiscing about all the kids and families that she remembered from the neighborhood. Of all of my mom's friends who could be involved with this story, it had to be, of course, Betsy Murphy. She's one of the few friends that's still alive, and she has been in and out of the gossip of my family for as long as I can remember. Aaron, Betsy is at the heart of this. Why the fuck is she in this? Well, we talked about the Delvecchios and the Marcuses and the O'Connors, and when I finally asked about you, Betsy said nothing. She stuttered and gave me some basics. She exchanged a look with my mom that I clocked, but I thought was weird. But I honestly thought you were dead or in prison because she talked openly about Aaron and your brother, but when I asked about you, she said nothing. Betsy, I would find out eventually, was someone my mom told when she got pregnant. and my mom swore her to secrecy. And even in this retelling from Julie, I'd say she kept her promise. In front of my bio dad's first wife. Wait, does that make her my stepmother? She didn't say much more about me than was necessary. She kept those lace curtains closed for my mother. Julie told me that when she and her mom got back to the car, that was when her mom told her, "Everyone knows that Sean Geary is your father's son." Julie said that she didn't know that, and she was pretty sure that I didn't either. And boy, was she right. Sean, everyone knew. Everyone knew? Everyone, according to my mother, anyway. So, like the Marcuses and the O'Connors, I was in these people's houses. Oh, God. The whole time, the whole time, the whole time, everyone. But it's not like Barbara was going to come up to me at the Christmas party and say, "Sean, Neil isn't your dad. Merry Christmas." So they couldn't tell me. But also, you guys must have been kicked out because I don't know who any of you are. Well, yeah, when you impregnate a woman from the friend group who isn't your wife, the others close ranks. They excluded you because of me? No, not because of you, because of my father and his choices. But how did they not slip up and tell one of us or have one of us figure it out? I mean, I feel like I can call Colin and be like, "Finally, we can all talk about it." The boomers are really good at keeping secrets. And she was right. They kept the secret. We had no idea. Boy, the way Glenn Miller played songs that made the hit parade. Guys like us, we had it made. Those were the days. And I'm glad that Julie didn't tell me when she found out. In 2016, I was just about to quit a PhD program, go on unemployment for the first time, and celebrate my first wedding anniversary with my husband. And my dad was still alive. This news would have been too juicy or gossipy for me not to tell Erin about it. And she and I would have to confront my mom with it. And at that time, I would say sassy gay boy or really bitchy gay man would have shown up to have the conversation. I could be a little dramatic sometimes. "Hey, Jane, who'd you fuck in 1974 to get pregnant with me?" Or, "Mom, should I ask Dad if he knows who my real father is?" Or, "Hey, Neil, guess you have three kids who aren't yours." Or, "Janie, you got some splaining to do." Around that time, I was beginning to make the shift in my own life away from this bitchy gay man. He was exhausting, offensive, and a defense mechanism. I realized that I became the wicked tongued stereotype of a sassy gay friend so that I could cut people down before they could hurt me. Because I took a lot of shit as a little kid, I became the bully. Don't fuss with me. It took a lot of work to turn that bitchy judgment from inward and outward to just no word. And he's gone for the most part. Sometimes he pops up for a visit, but I try my best not to give in. He's mean for the sake of being mean. And I thought he was funny, but he really isn't. He can be fun at parties as long as you're not the object of his vitriol. But really, he's uninterested, boring, and just plain jaded. It's best he doesn't really show up anymore. If Julie had done an Ancestry.com test, this would have been solved a lot sooner. I did one in 2022, and I got the results that I was about 20% Polish through my father. 23andMe eventually confirmed roughly that same percentage. And I couldn't figure out how this was possible. My dad's parents were the children of Irish immigrants. "Mom, I got my ancestry results back. I'm almost like a fifth Polish through dad." "Nana and Grampy are both Irish, though. Nanny was Irish and Bumpy was Finnish. So you're 75% Irish and 25% Finnish." "Mom, genetics does not work like that. You get what you get. But somehow I'm not that Irish and I'm Polish. Maybe Nana Geary stepped out?" "Oh, your grandmother would never do that." And towards the end of his life, my dad looked so much like my grandfather, it was uncanny. So it wasn't my grandmother, who I clearly threw under the bus. I hadn't put anything together that maybe it was my mom. And even in this moment, my mother wasn't going to tell me the truth. Those lace curtains were drawn tight, sewn shut, and had a deadbolt just in case. Mr. Geary, you say you got genetic results from this place, Ancestry.com. You know, Mrs. Colombo says, won't let me do one of those things. She says some secrets are best left buried. Uh, but this is my job. So, from your maternal side, you got some Irish and some Finnish, makes sense. From your paternal side, you see you got some Irish. That makes sense. But then you got this good bit of Polish. That doesn't make sense, Mr. Geary. It doesn't make sense to me either, detective. And you think your grandmother maybe had an affair? I mean, my dad and grandfather didn't get along, so maybe it was her and Grampy knew. And that's why a father and son hate each other. The son wasn't his. He can't divorce, bad blood. All right, case closed. Yeah, that's possible. Thank you, detective. I have so much to process right now. One other thing, Mr. Geary. If you don't mind humoring me a little, is it possible, let's just say for argument's sake, that your mother stepped out? That Neil Geary isn't the paternal DNA, so to speak? Detective, I hadn't thought of that. But it's possible, right? Well, anything is possible, detective. Why, I do remember in ninth grade. Hello? Is your mother there? No, she isn't. May I take a message? Mom, some weird guy called and wouldn't leave a message. Oh, that's strange, honey. I'm sure I don't know who he is then. Hello? Is your mother there? No, she isn't. May I take a message? Mom, some guy called and wouldn't leave a message. Oh, that's weird. I'm sure I don't know who he is then. Hello? Is your mother there? No, she isn't. Dennis? I was pretty sure I knew who was calling, and it wasn't my bio dad, but it was the last time that Dennis called that I know of. You'll never guess my secret identity. Who's on the inside, hiding out? Because of my ancestry results, I started to do a lot of research into my dad's family to see who was this random Polish person. Did the Gearys immigrate to the US earlier than we were told? Did someone move to America and marry someone who wasn't Irish? A very big deal back then. No Polish names, no stowaways in the 1700s. No way was this person in the Geary family tree. In my deep dives, though, I did find out that a half great great aunt was a true crime story in the early 1900s called The Suitcase Murder. Whenever there's trouble, we're there on the double. We're the Bloodhound Gang. Aaron and I could not believe that Julie sat on this information for so long. Julie kept saying to me over and over that I was meant to find her on my own and not have her reach out. Truth be told, though, she could have reached out after my dad died, which she also knew when that happened. If I found out all this information at a younger age, obviously I think it would be a much bigger deal. But at 50, I've done a lot of work on myself to define who I am, and it's more than DNA and upbringing. And let's be honest, I mostly raised myself. It's just another interesting bit of information to me. I also consume a lot of true crime media. And while this isn't a crime, it feels adjacent, like stories of mistaken and stolen identities. When DNA tests were first coming out, I read and listened to a lot of stories about babies switched at birth, the early days of fertility treatments where doctors and techs used their own sperm on patients, and the stories of families doing tests and finding out that siblings were half siblings or not at all related. If you've never done one of these, you have to agree multiple times to with warnings of potential matches to people you may not know before you're able to see your results. And all the times I talked about DNA tests, my mom never told me not to do one, but I only really started talking about them after my dad died. So she could feel safe if I found out. Picture it. Washington State, March 2024. Mom, I know dad wasn't my biological dad. Oh, good. That cat's finally out of the bag. Her actual words. I've always wanted to tell you, but I didn't know how. Forgetting that a couple years before this conversation, she could have. I don't know if you kids know this, but your dad and I had some rough patches. Rough patches. Like the time you stayed with Auntie Claudia and Uncle Tony for 2 weeks after a huge fight. Like the year the guy would call without leaving messages. Or the year I moved you into an apartment down by the mall on Black Friday. Oh, yeah, I suppose you were aware. Mom, I was conscious in all those houses. Well, your dad and I weren't always happy, and I wasn't always happy. And we moved to Andover Street, and there was, well, your father. I didn't know he would be your father at the time, but it was the 70s. And we'd have all these parties, and during the parties, we'd get closer and closer. We spent a lot of time together. I want you to know you were conceived in love. Ew. But also considering the circumstances, I was really glad she said that. It wasn't some wham bam thank you ma'am situation. She actually said that. And when I was pregnant, when I told him I was pregnant, he just said, don't explain and don't complain. So I knew he wasn't going to do anything about it. Well, what's for lunch? The conversation went on for about 30 minutes, and it was really blasé and almost mundane. When it was done, we drove to Fred Meyer for lunch meat and chips. Aaron and I sat in the car, decompressing, laughing, and getting angry, running through all of the emotions. And suddenly I had a memory come flooding back to me. We live so long, and the number of cast off comments, jokes, and asides become impossible to remember. And every once in a while, a small piece of new information comes in to help focus the details. When I had my senior portraits done in high school, we got proofs of all the shots, and I was allowed to pick one for the yearbook. But my mom wanted one for her that was in a shirt and tie because she was always really formal like that, lace curtain. And she said to me, this is the one I want because you look so much like your father. This suddenly became a core memory after being left on the cutting room floor for so many years. Because I remember looking at that photo and saying, I don't look a thing like him here. And she said, I can see it. You look exactly like him. And as I sat in the car with Aaron, I realized that I did look like my father, just not my dad. My father is on the left and my dad is on the right. I can see a part of me in you, a little something special that comes shining through. I can hear it in your laughter and feel it when you cry. That's my dad, all right. You wanted a baby, so don't explain and don't complain. He said your parents did IVF or something, so there was always a chance you weren't his. There's my father, trying his best to shirk responsibility for me before I was even out of the womb. IVF. IVF. Yeah. An elementary school teacher slash waitress and an unemployed undergraduate were absolutely on the cutting edge of fertility medicine in the mid 1970s. What a man will do to avoid a messy situation. And it would have been messy. I don't doubt that. My parents did see doctors about their fertility, and according to my mother, my dad had a low count. So it wasn't inconceivable that he could get my mom pregnant, but it wasn't exactly probable either. My mom wouldn't give me the details, and I didn't really need them. But I feel certain this is how the conversation went down between her and Biodad. David, I'm pregnant. Oh, sweetheart, congratulations. Neil finally punched that ticket. I don't know why I imagine him sounding like a 50s movie gangster, but here we are. David, I'm serious. It's not Neil's, it's yours. But it could be Neil's, right? Sure, it could be Neil's. Well, then don't explain and don't complain, baby. You got what you always wanted. The story my mom has always told us was that my dad was unemployed for a while before she got pregnant, and he was all over her. Ugh. I was born in early September, so I think it was like a Thanksgiving or early Christmas party hookup. Who knows? But what I do believe is that my mom was excited to be pregnant. And I think she was excited for me to be David's baby because she was not happy at the time. But I also think she was scared because this guy didn't want to be the father to the daughter he already had. And if my dad knew, my parents would have divorced and he wouldn't have stepped up for me. My mom would be divorced with three kids and a big old mess of custody and parental support. Not to mention that it may have broken up David's first marriage even earlier. So put up those lace curtains. Sure, it's possible it's Neil's. And they did look very similar. So I was going to pass the sniff test. There's me with my niece Samantha on the Christmas visit that I told you about. You see my dad on the bottom right with her earlier that summer. You see my bio dad on the top with my other niece. My two dads are the same age. My nieces are the same age. These photos would have all been taken about 6 months apart. So if my mom had followed through on her crush on the 5'3" Sicilian in the friend group, it would have been a lot more obvious. I'm not really sure how I would have wanted my mom to tell me. I was annoyed that I had to find out by myself. Mom swore she didn't tell anyone and that nobody could possibly know the truth. But then I found out eventually that she had told Betsy and her best friend Sandy while she was pregnant with me. So nobody knew? Okay, Jane. About a month after the truth came out between us, I traveled with my mom back to New England. Her health has been deteriorating for several years, and she really won't be back there until we bury her. So I figured we could go and see some of her friends and what little family we still talk to. And I wanted to meet Julie. So the day I was going to Julie's house, I brought my mom to spend the day with Sandy and her husband, Russ. And I had to come up with a believable story as to why I'm ditching my mom. Sean, who are you going to see? An old friend from school, Sandy. And it's like we haven't seen each other in so long, it's almost like I don't even know her. Oh, that's nice. That sounds so wonderful. What a great day. Your mother is in good hands with me and Russ. And what I really wanted to say in that moment was, my half sister who I don't know about. And at the time of this exchange, I didn't know that she knew, but it would have been very interesting to see her reaction. I found myself saving face for my mom, but after I found out that she had told people, I started talking about this more openly. And I really didn't care how it would affect her. Infidelity. Infidelity. We've got infidelity here. See, nobody cares. You know, when I heard he was divorced and getting remarried, I was always jealous that he didn't pick me. Wait, what? You see, my mother loved my dad, but she also loved my father. But she couldn't reconcile those big feelings she had for both of them. Silent generation. But my heart broke for her when she told me she had wished my bio dad had picked her. Around the time that he was getting divorced and remarried to his secretary, fucking cliche, I know. My parents were at one of the shakiest points in their marriage, the guy calling and not leaving messages. And so I can see how, knowing that information, she held a torch for the outside possibility that he'd pick her. I understand the need to imagine something else that could have been better than what she had. I learned it by watching you, Mom. But what did she think was going to happen? My bio dad was going to jump up on the porch and take her, his unbeknownst to him at the time biological son, and two other kids. Oh, my dad would not have done any of that. You got the dad you needed. She really fucking loved him, though. Sounds like it. She's the crazy ex-girlfriend. What? No, I'm not. She's the crazy ex-girlfriend. That's a sexist term. She's the crazy ex-girlfriend. Can you guys stop singing for a second? She's so broken inside. The situation's a lot more nuanced than that. Not being a Geary by blood does explain a lot, though. I am nothing like my cousins. I was the youngest of Nan and Grampy's grandkids, and I felt like an outsider in that family. They didn't treat me badly. I just didn't know how to connect with any of them. I'm also nothing like the cousins on my mom's side of the family either, but that's less biology and more personality. I'm a performer, clearly, and no one in my family got on stage to do anything. They were all brains or jocks or a little bit of both. And once the acting bug bit, I was sold. In my final performance in high school, I was Moonface Martin, Public Enemy, number 13, and anything goes. The part was perfect for me. Comic relief, fat and clearly gay, sung through, and very little choreography. The audience cheered louder for me as I came out for my curtain call, and it was the first time it ever happened. And I knew I was a hit. It was validating, intoxicating. Mom, I just want to be an actor. I know you do, honey, but that's not an easy career choice. And are you that good? You used to play make believe all the time, but that's not the same. Hey there. Hiding out under your bed again. Which fight is this? Oh, yeah, the one where mom found the liquor bottle in your brother's closet. Yeah, this is a bad one. He'll try and swing his baseball bat on her for snooping. He doesn't hurt her, at least not physically. I'm sure she's experiencing some bad flashbacks from her childhood. You'll find out later. This is a good place for you right now. You're you're pretty scared, huh? Yeah, don't make him angry. You won't like him when he's angry. No, he'll stop a lot of stuff eventually, but he won't apologize for any of it. Yes, I do. I mean, you will have a lot of tattoos. No, I'm not a chef like Jack Tripper. No, not a private detective like Simon and Simon. Yeah, listen, kid, I'm just going to tell you right now, you have a type. Eventually, you'll meet somebody who isn't this type, but this will be your type for a long time. You'll actually meet Jason Ritter, John's son, at an improv show when you're older. He's very sweet to you, and he looks and sounds just like his dad. Well, improv is kind of like what you're doing right now, making up your own stories. You got your G.I. Joes, Transformers, and He-Man toys all in battle together. You're making things up. And you'll do this a lot when you're older, but without the toys. You'll do it in front of people and you'll be able to make them laugh. I just need to tell you, Sean, your life is going to be so much more than this. You're going to grow up and you're going to meet some great people. You're going to meet a guy on your first day of college. His name is Paul, and he'll be your best friend there. He'll see through your lace curtains and he won't judge what he sees. He'll stand by you when you start living your truth and make sure you're included. When you're a little older, you'll meet Emily, who right now lives in Cambridge, but she's going to be your absolute best friend. The first night you meet her, the two of you will talk as if you've known each other forever. You'll call each other platonic soulmates. She's going to be the person who officiates your wedding. No, you won't get married in a church. The person I need to tell you about, though, is the one who will change your life. You're going to meet Nick Armstrong.
Oh.
Yeah, like the Armstrongs up the street, but that's not his family. He's going to run the retreat. He's going to run this retreat that's like a summer camp for adults called Improv Utopia. And you're going to go to the woods and do make believe stuff and tell ghost stories around the campfire. But by then, you'll like the scary stuff. You are going to meet the most amazing people in your life. Through this friendship, you'll travel around the country and Ireland multiple times. You won't hide away under beds or in attics or be alone. You won't be this small or scared. I can pinpoint the moment my life changed. I met Nick and he told me about Improv Utopia and I knew I just had to go. I can look back at that moment and see my timeline beginning to fork off into something new and unexpected. I imagine it like the scene in Pleasantville when the books start magically filling in when Tobey Maguire starts to tell the stories. That was my blank future, and Improv Utopia magically filled it in. I made some of my absolute best friends of my life because of Nick. Whoops. Ah, sorry. Technical issues. Here we go. I met some of my absolute best friends in my life because of Camp and Nick. I didn't fully understand the depths of those friendships until the day my dad died. It was the day before I was supposed to go to Improv Utopia 2018. At camp, I had this bit where I would try and take selfies with every participant. It's a bit that ended for a lot of reasons, but when I started it, it was good because it became a challenge for me to meet everyone there and talk to them for a few moments at least. It helped me get out of my shell and my safe groups. I wasn't going to be able to take selfies. What was going to happen? I wanted to be with my friends, but I knew I needed to be with my family, obviously. So as I was walking through Fred Meyer near my sister's house, oh my goodness, dear, are you okay? Not many people break down in the chip aisle. Not really, but I know I'm loved. We could all use a little bit of that. My friends made a cutout of my face for people to take selfies with all weekend. And I sat in that car and I asked my husband how I got to be so lucky to have such great friends who cared so much about me. And he told me it's not luck. You put in the work. These people love you. You are loved. And it was in Fred Meyer, that same Fred Meyer, that 6 years later, I would realize so much of my life was different than what I knew, that I realized friends should prop you up when you need it the most. I stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop and began accepting their love. Look at what's happened to me. I can't believe it myself. Suddenly I'm up on top of the world. It should have been somebody else. Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so free. Flying away on a wing and a prayer. Who could it be? Believe it or not, it's just me. I did eventually meet my older sister Julie and my brother-in-law and my niece and nephew. They're wonderful and we still stay in touch. I met my bio dad for lunch on that same trip. We spent 2 hours talking about everything but the elephant in the room. He seems nice. He seems nice, but through various check-ins with Julie, I don't think that I'll ever see him again. His choice more than mine. While it was interesting for us to meet, I didn't know he existed before now. He's in his 80s, and his presence in my presence in his life seemed to be a bit more than he wanted. So nothing really changes for me. He wasn't there for me then, and he isn't here for me now. He's just an interesting anecdote for me to talk about. So did my dad know? My mother swears that he didn't. He passed away a few months after having a stroke. It hit his mind pretty hard. He developed dementia nearly immediately, and in his final months wasn't the man I knew. I can't point to any one incident that tells me he knew and treated me differently. So even if he knew I wasn't his kid, biologically, neither were his other two. So what's one more? He cared about me. He wasn't my best friend. And he also didn't want 3 kids. Picture it, Washington State, 2018.
Well, your dad only wanted one child, so the fact that we had three is the real miracle. Mom! What? It's
Wait,
true! He only wanted one, and Erin, when you arrived, it was love at first sight. Mom! What? It's true! Mom! What? It's true! Mom! What? It's true!
what? You only wanted one kid. Huh. That makes a lot of sense now. Were you scared to have more than one? You guys adopted Aaron and figured you couldn't have any more kids, so one was good. It's fine that mom told me this. It's like 5 years of therapy in a single sentence. I'm sure for other people it would have crushed their soul, but for me it was an enormous weight off my shoulders and it lifted my soul. I always thought it was me, and really it was you. I would have come to that conclusion eventually, but this just sped it along. I could have loved everything you loved, but it wouldn't have mattered. I wasn't Aaron. I was never going to be Aaron. Creme brulee can never be Jello. I was so lonely. You worked so much teaching, waiting tables, selling carpeting, and you weren't around. Because of what my brother put Aaron and me through as kids, I was terrified of being alone with him. It was genuinely safer for me to be alone in the house than to be alone with him. We never told you because what were you and mom going to do, really? When I told teachers about it at school, they'd ask what I did to make him so angry. Today, we'd have been pulled out of the house. No questions. I really wanted a younger brother or sister. I wanted to be the bully and the tormentor that he was to me. I wanted to have the power that I was never going to have over him to hold over someone else. I craved that idea. But I also figured if I had someone younger, I could be like Aaron and be the big brother who was always there. As an adult, I tend to be the big brother type with my friends because of wanting to be the reliable, safe person that they can trust. I'm glad I chose that path for myself over the bully. You always knew, I always knew you liked Aaron more than me, and it makes sense now. I wasn't imagining it. Like, I knew you loved and cared about me, but you just didn't like me. You treated her so differently. She still gives me shit for all the stuff she had: slide reels, boxes of toys, and pictures and letters. And I have a shopping bag that was left on my bed one night when I was home for break. She got to do stuff with you, and I was just annoying. And when Samantha came along, it was the same thing. Samantha was your little granddaughter, and Dominic couldn't get a foot in the door. You had room in your heart for Aaron and Samantha, and everyone else was just lucky to be at the table. Mom was so desperate to be pregnant that I feel like I was demanded into existence. I'm David's son, and I think you knew that. I know it was the 70s and there were parties, but that was no excuse. Mom wasn't happy married to you, and I think she eventually convinced herself she was happy, but I don't think that she was. And I'm not sure you were happy either. As a partner, you were tough. You never said much more than I can. You never said much that I can remember growing up. You never talked about your feelings. You never contributed to the culture of our family, not that we really had one. And you never said what would make you happy. And I think it's because your answer would have been not to have 3 kids. And how do you tell your 2 sons that? Or maybe not married to your mother. Hmm. She is a lot. I realize that now. She's nearing the end of her life and she's alone. She lives at Aaron's, but Aaron's a flight attendant now and she's gone a lot of the time. Mom's mobility and health is deteriorating and she wants what she wants, but her body isn't cooperating. And I know she knows she hurt you, but I also know she's never faced up to it. But I'm not sure you ever told her she hurt you. Maybe you did, but I don't know. She was angry and bitter the way that you died. Your illness and death messed up her plans. And I told her, it's okay to feel this way. We all have plans and expectations, and it sucks when they don't work out, and it's okay to be frustrated and angry. But it's not like you had a stroke on purpose. It's not like you wanted to get dementia. So feel angry and frustrated, but also this is your life now. So, you know, you had plans too, Dad. You bought a house with space for a workshop again, and you were going to get back to building things, but it didn't work out that way. What I know about my father, he wasn't happy either. And so he and mom had these encounters, and mom made it sound like it was more than just a fling to her, but I'm pretty sure to David it was just a fling. You guys should have gotten divorced, but I think she was scared. You would have told her you knew I wasn't your son, and she'd have to be responsible for me on her own because my father wasn't going to help either. I wonder if you would have been happier free of her nagging. By the time of the final straw of it all, it would have only been me. Aaron was getting married and moving to Hawaii, and my brother was starting college soon. So I think mom and I could have made it on our own. And maybe I wouldn't have found out that you weren't, maybe I would have found out earlier that you weren't my father. I probably would have cut you off, but not in a bad way, but just in a I'm not a burden on you anymore kind of way. Or you don't have to worry about me anymore because I was never yours to begin with, and now I won't be a disappointment to you. The Catholic martyr syndrome runs deep. I'm sure mom would have wanted David to be involved, but talking to Julie, he wasn't going to. But then Julie would have known about me, and she would have had a baby brother, and she wouldn't have been alone anymore. These two kids, separated by at most a couple of miles, were so lonely and just drifting. They could have had each other. In my heart, over the years, I've given you a lot of grace. You didn't know how to parent. Your parents were awful. You didn't know the first thing about being a dad. You just knew disappointment and disdain. You came to our rehearsal dinner and pouted that the food wasn't hot or to your liking. The food wasn't what was important, but you pouted and slammed around the table, and I was embarrassed. I didn't want you there anymore. I forgave you in my heart because I had to do that or I'd just be bitter, and I didn't want to give you that much control over my life. You did what you could with what little you had, so you were adequate. You kept us housed and fed and clothed and relatively engaged in activities, and there were kids in both of our classrooms over the years we know who couldn't have said that. So I thank you for that. But I never knew if I left an impression on you. I never knew if you spoke of me to others with pride or admiration. You were a mystery to me up until the day you died. And when you died, I cried that I couldn't be with my friends that day. I wanted their embrace over this heartbreak that I was feeling. I wasn't sad you had died. I was sad I couldn't be with them. And still, as I sit here and tell all these fucking stories, I have a question in my heart that I'll never get the answer to. Were you proud of me? I've been down this world, walking the line that's painted by pride. And I have made mistakes in my life that I just can't hide. I believe I am ready for what love has to bring. Got myself together, now I'm ready to sing. I've been searching my soul tonight. I know there's so much more to life. I know I can shine a light to find my way back home.